If that's all we got for announcements, I think we've hit everything. We'll open up in prayer and get started. Justin, you want to pray for us? I was reminded of a statement that I made over a year ago about having 100 people in a regular service. I had completely forgot I made that statement. That I said we do something special. And I don't know if you know, we had 80-something this past Sunday. So they come and said, "You're getting close. Getting close. What you gonna do?" Huh? Yes. So, who knows? We're getting close. Big difference from where we were when we started back. Big difference. God's good. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 is where we'll pick up. We hit on chapter 8. I said we hit on it. We read the whole chapter last week and talked about it. And chapter 8 was where Paul was speaking about generosity and giving, and he was trying to urge or encourage the church of Corinth to be open to giving to the ministry, and not just giving to the ministry, but doing it with the right heart and giving what they felt led to give. And he also made a very important statement in that chapter that sticks with me, is the fact that God will never want you to ask you to give beyond your ability. God will never ask or expect you to give more than what you have to give. If you follow him and let him lead you, you're not gonna put yourself in a bind. He's not gonna make you give yourself out to where you don't have anything else for everybody else to be able to survive and live. So if you ever get to the point to where you feel like you're having to pay the pastor and he's living in a mansion, which I'm not, just let you know, and you're just struggling by, huh? That's it, baby. That's it. There's an issue with that. There's an issue whenever you feel like that you've given all that you can give where everybody else can survive off of what you've done. And I truly feel like if we follow God and give generously to where our heart is led us to give and what our heart has led us to give, we'll never feel like that. We'll always feel as if God's taking our generosity and he's multiplying it the way he sees fit. So I will always encourage you to let God lead you in whatever you're giving, whether it be monetary, whether it be time, whether it be talent, or whatever you're giving to God. Let him lead you on how much of that to give. Because just like money, if you give energy, you're eventually going to run out if you try to give too much. You're going to get burnt out, and it's going to be to where you're not good. I say you're not good, but you're not much help to anybody at that point because you have just given all that you have. We've all been there from time to time, but it seems like whenever we are doing it for God, that there's always more in the tank. There's always enough. He's always replenishing us to be able to keep going and doing what God has asked us to do. So he said we should give, and then he began to encourage the church to give what they had promised before, and this he was speaking monetary because he was looking for money for the ministry, money for the saints, and he kind of picks up in chapter 9 on the same topic. We'll start in verse 1. It says, For as touching the ministering to the saints, it is superfluous for me to write you. For I know the forwardness of your mind, for which I boast of you to them of Macedonia and Achaia, was ready for you a year ago, and your zeal hath provoked very many. Yet have I sent the brethren, lest our boasting of you should be in vain on this behalf, that, as I said, ye may be ready. Lest haply, if they of Macedonia come with me and find you unprepared, that we, say not ye, should be ashamed in the same confident boasting. Therefore I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren, that they would go before unto you and make up beforehand your bounty, wherefore ye had noticed before, and the same might be ready, as a matter of bounty, not as covetousness. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly. He that which soweth bountiful shall reap also bountiful. Every man according to his purpose in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or out of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things may abound to every good work. As it is written, He hath dispersed abroad, He hath given to the poor, His righteousness remaineth forever. Now he that ministereth seed to the sower both minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness, being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causes through us thanksgiving of God. For the administration of this service not only supplieth the want of the saints, but is abundant also by many thanksgivings unto God, while by the experiment of the ministration of the glory of God, for your professed subjection unto the gospel of Christ, and for your liberal distribution unto them and unto all men. And by their prayer for you, which long after you, for the exceeding grace of God in you, thanks be unto God for his unspeakable gift. As I said, he starts off picking up right where he left off. The only difference here is Paul is opening in a different way. He's not opening in a way of, I'm telling you this, I'm telling you that, here you need to do this. He's opening in almost a joking fashion. He says, I really don't need to be doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is not necessary for me to give you this heads up, because I know that you're going to give. It's a way of keeping the church uplifted. As a matter of fact, he continues talking about boasting. In chapter 8, he was comparing the giving hearts of Macedonia, trying to get the church to reach that point. He said, I want you to be more like Macedonia and give more like them. But here, he says that he's boasting to Macedonia about how much they're willing to give, and how much how much they love to give, and how much they love God. And he says, so I'm writing to you for a purpose, and the purpose is I want to give you a heads up. Because all the bragging that we have been doing about how much this church loves and how much this church is willing to give, if we show up and you're not ready, we're all going to look silly. It's going to turn out bad. It's kind of like we did this past week. We took up a love offering. And what did we do the week before? We give you a heads up. And the reason we give you a heads up is where everybody will be prepared, right? You can pray, you can seek God's guidance, you have time to prepare for what the Lord is asking from you. And that's what Paul is doing here. He says, I know it's not necessary, because I know that you're going to give, but I want you to understand, I want to make sure you have time to pray. I want you to have time to seek God's direction. That way, whenever the time comes, you're going to give what God wants you to give. It's going to be appropriate. We're not going to look silly. We're not going to look as if our boasting and all our bragging has been in vain. And we all been there. I grew up coon hunting, love coon hunting. But if you ever brag on a dog, he's going to make you a liar. Every time. That dog will not run a deer. Guess what? That coon dog running a deer. It'll happen every time. And it's kind of what it is. If you brag, we take a chance of letting people down. But we want people to brag on us. We want people to say, hey, these people are the real deal. These people love God. They follow God. They have giving hearts because of the love they have for God. And as long as we work together to keep everybody up to date, none of us are going to look silly. God's not going to allow that to happen. So Paul's just trying to say, I know where you're at. I'm confident in you. Just be ready when we come. And he goes on and he starts explaining a little more. And I don't know if Paul is testing them to see how far they were willing to go. I don't know if in the past that they have given but could have given more. I don't know. But when he starts talking about the ones who give a lot, if you give bountiful, you're going to receive bountiful. If you're going to give sparingly, you're going to receive sparingly. And he's basically telling you what you give to God, God's going to give back. He's going to multiply it. And he goes on and he's saying that I want you to understand that God's grace will never run out. No matter how much you give to God, His grace is sufficient. It's sufficient for everything. And he goes on to talk about in verse number 10 how that he understands that God is the one who provides everything. What we can give has already been provided by God. Everything that we have, we received from the Creator, from the Master. It's been given to us. It's been given to us where in turn we can bless as God sees fit. So whatever we give is going to be replenished because we know the Maker. We know the Creator. We trust in Him. And that's what he was trying to get across to the church. He says, I know you've got a generous heart. I know you want to give. But as if he was pushing them to test the limits, to get out of the comfort zone. We love to stay in our bubbles. This is where we're at. This is where we're comfortable. I've given $100 before. I've given 8 hours of work before. I've given the time on the drums before, whatever it may be, and we're good with that. We're comfortable with that. But it's the moment that we're asked to step beyond that we are very hesitant because we don't like being uncomfortable. We like, hey, I'm good. I'm good. Me and God's good. We got a good thing going. But it's almost as if Paul was pushing the church to step out a little more. Give a little more because I want you to see how good God really is. I want you to put it to the test. This is the words I'm telling you. You've heard it in the past. He quoted scripture. He said, as it is written, He hath dispersed abroad and hath given to the poor. His righteousness remaineth forever. That is written. That is a promise. That is a guarantee that God's done it before. He'll do it again. He's got everything right here. And that's what Paul's trying to get out. So I feel that Paul is pushing to see how far the church is willing to go. He's already told him, I see your turn in the previous chapters. I believe it was chapter 7. He said, I see your turn. I see you turning towards God. I see Him working in your life. Now let's keep going. Let's see how far we can push it. Where we stop? Number 11, it says, being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causes through us thanksgiving to God. So Paul in verse 10, he was saying that I understand that God blesses us materially. He blesses us spiritually. He blesses us in all ways. Everything we have comes from Him. And I understand that. In verse 11, he goes back and recognizes again that all of it is done for the glory of God. That anything that we give has already been given to us by God, and that everything's going to be multiplied by God. And when we give from our hearts and when we give in the name of God, He's going to receive all the glory. All the thanksgiving is going to be given to Him through our works. And that is a blessing. I want you to understand that. If you haven't been in the place, if you have, you know what I'm talking about. But whenever you've worked and done something for God, and you realized that God just used you, man, there's no better feeling in the world than to realize you've been used by the Master. That is the best feeling ever. So if you follow God's lead and follow your heart and reach out to someone, or step out on faith and do this, or even just picking up the phone and calling that person, and you realize that God put you in that place and He used you. You were His tool. You were His instrument for Him to receive the glory. Man, that's a wonderful feeling. That's a wonderful feeling. And it's something that we as Christians are okay with. You know, if you truly are working for God, you don't need recognition. You don't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you give, what you do, how much time you got put in. It doesn't matter if people don't know your name, as long as He's getting the glory. If we can reach that as a church, not just Crossroads, but as church, God's people, if we can have that mindset across the children of God, man, it would be unreal what you would see. But there's so many people that are still seeking that recognition. They like working for God. They're doing good. They're doing really good things. But they still want to be in the spotlight. But it's the moment that we can realize that if we can be transparent, and whenever they see us, they see Jesus, that's the moment that God can truly work the way He wants to work. We need to remove us out of the situation, out of the equation, and just be that instrument for Him. Any questions, comments, concerns? No? Verses 12 through 14. It says, "For not the administration of the service not only supplieth the want of the saints, but is abundant also by many thanksgivings unto God. While the experiment of the ministration of the glory of God for your professed subjection into the gospel of Christ, for your liberal distribution unto them and unto all men, and by your prayer, for which ye long after for the exceeding grace of God in you, thanks be to God for His unspeakable gift." So verses 12 through 14, it starts talking about it gives us a better idea of what He's asking for. He says this gift is going to supply the needs of the saints. This is going to help carry on the ministering of the gospel. This is first and foremost. This is what's most important. And these people, unfortunately, they need finances to be able to do what they need to do. They need to eat, they need to travel, they need whatever it may be at that time. He said, I want you to understand that God supplies that, and all the thanks and all the glory is going to be given to God, but we need to meet the needs of these saints. We need to meet the needs of the men of God who are going, or men and women of God who are going and speaking the word, speaking the gospel. And he starts telling them about and thanking them for their liberal distribution, their gifts, their willingness to give in abundance unto all men, not just unto the saints, but unto all men, and that the prayers that they're praying for you and the grace of God is going to take care of you. We're going to hit verse 15 in just a minute, but I want to go back. There's one thing that I missed, and it was verse number 7. It says, "Every man according to his purpose in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, For God loveth a cheerful giver. This is a verse that I don't want to miss, because what Paul's doing is he's letting us know that we're only going to give, we only need to give what God lays on our heart. It's given word for word there. Give what God has proposed on your heart. Whatever he's laid on your heart, that's what you do. That's what you give. That we should never give grudgingly. We should never give in a way that we really regret. We really don't want to do it, but we're going to do it anyway out of necessity, because this is what we're supposed to do. If you're giving because this is what you're supposed to do and you really don't want to, you're not going to get blessed. God's still going to use that. He's still going to use it for the ministry. He's still going to make good out of it. But the blessing that you have got is the knowing that you did what you were supposed to do, or the recognition that may come with it. You know, I don't know how much you've ever been involved, but normally somebody, if they give a lot, whatever it may be, if they put in the most time, they put in the most effort, or put in the most money, they think that their name needs to be on it. This is mine. I get to make the decisions. That's not the way it works with God. Whenever we give our time, we give our effort, we give our money. Whenever we give, it's up to God to do what he does. And we should do it just for the glory of God. Just because we want to honor God, we want to work for him. This is what he's laid on our heart to do, and we just want to obey. So he says God loves a cheerful giver. And verse number 15 I found very intriguing. He says, thanks be to God for his unspeakable gift. Thanks be to God for his unspeakable gift. I think some translations say indescribable gift, but I could be wrong on that. I begin to think, what is that? What fits that? Could he be speaking of Jesus? Thanks to God for Jesus. That's something unspeakable, undescribable, that you really can't even fathom why. Why would Jesus do that? Is it salvation? That's a gift that only comes from God. Is it love? Is it grace? All these things that I think of when I start thinking about the unspeakable gift. It could be your next breath. As I was studying the scripture, I was reading different thoughts on this, and everybody kept going back to Jesus or salvation. That was like the top two. This is what I think. This is what I think. I'm with you, brother. I think that unspeakable gift is whatever we need in that moment that God blesses us with. How many times have you had a need and God just showed up? Bam. Nobody else could have met it. Nobody else could have known, but God showed up. He said, thanks be to God for his unspeakable gift. I thank God for those unspeakable gifts. Those gifts that nobody can explain. There's times when God showed up unannounced and just made it happen. Man, that's wonderful things. Anybody else got a comment on the chapter?
I still think the whole thing with giving to God is, we all know God doesn't need our money.
Absolutely.
But I think money, the time, the effort, is to help change our lives. And that's why it was that cheerful giving. Because like I said, he wants us to do it out of love, and the more you can do it that way and truly enjoy it, you do become more like Christ. Not being selfish.
Yep, I can agree with that. And that may be why Paul was pushing the church. That may be why Paul was saying, hey, the more you give, the more God's going to bless you. I want you to understand that you can't give too much.
But it's not as an investment.
No, it's not. It's not. But it does. It changes your life.
Yeah.
when you hit that moment to where you realize that it's just a gun, you know, it's just a car, it's just a truck,
But I
it's
mean,
just money.
It doesn't change your heart, I mean, because man by herself is very slow.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that's usually the toughest thing to do, is to have to get,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's mine.
especially nowadays, you.
It's also like putting him first, because when you're concentrating on, dealing with your kids and the people for that, you always put guilt, or if they're doing too much money or something else, your time might be further less than what you're doing specifically doing that way.
Yeah, it could be. Could be making sure that he's number one in our life and nothing else is above him. Very well could be. Anybody else? Josephus. Yeah. Man, I love y'all. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. I don't know what time it is. Y'all want to jump into chapter 10? Oh, we got time. Yeah. Pierce, will you run and get me a bottle of water? Thank you. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Do we need a recap on chapter 9 or y'all good? You're good? Okay. Verse number 1, it says, Now I, Paul, excuse me. I better wait on that water. Y'all talk. My sinuses have been kicking my butt. Anything? Mr. Billy, you got something you want to share? If not, Justin?
You need to remember that when you give, you're giving something away, your time, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And you can't, when you give something away, you can't expect something in return.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the point you made earlier, where people who give the most or whatever, expect to see everything on something. That's, they didn't give it with a giving.
Correct. Absolutely.
They gave with an expectation that you would get something.
For benefit. They gave for benefit. Truly giving has no benefit to you whatsoever. And we can't be Indian givers.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's, you're not giving.
Well, I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that nowadays, but that's what we used to. Probably not, but we can't give and take back.
Right.
Okay?
It's not giving that you take back.
Yes, yes. So we do, whatever we feel led to give, we need to give open-heartedly with no expectation. Pierce must have got lost. There must not have been no water. Oh, yes.
I like what you were saying.
Yes.
I like what you were saying about how once you realize it's just money, or once you realize it's just a day or a few hours of your time, like once you get that mindset, it's really easy to just continue to give, because it's just money. Like when you really think about it, it's just some paper.
It is. And it is. It really is. But whenever you hit that mindset, things in life come that often makes you have to revisit that again. Especially whenever, you know, I was always a money guy. When I was in high school, I worked and I had money. I had money to buy whatever I wanted to buy. And I'd go to the store to get it, and I walk around the store and put it back on the shelf and leave because I didn't want to spend my money. You know, that was it. It was mine.
I'm with you.
Yeah, and that's something that was hard for me. Whenever I give my life to Christ, one of the hardest things for me was to faithfully pay my tithes. I'll be completely honest with you. That was very hard, and I hit a point to where I was doing well. I was paying my tithes, and then money started running short. And it starts getting you to question, okay, what should I do now? How should I go about this now? And sometimes we have to revisit that based on our situation in life. You know, when our time is short, you know, it's easy to give time when we have plenty of time to give. It's easy to give money when we have plenty of money to give. But it's when everything starts getting in a crunch to where we're really tested, so to speak, to where our heart's truly in it. And sometimes we're going to make the wrong decision. Sometimes we're going to hold on just a little too tight. And God will begin to work on that to get us straightened back out, so to speak. I've been there, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that's been there. You know, me and Amanda, when we were over the youth at Promised Land, we had a good thing going, and we were going and going and going and going and going, and we give and we give and we give time. You know, we didn't have a whole lot of money to give, but man, we were going all the time. We were with the kids. We were at birthday parties. We were at graduations. We were at dances. We were at school proms. You know, whatever. And we hit a wall. Just bam. I just had nothing else. You know, I'm done. I'm burnt out. I'm tired. And when we hit that point, it was hard to get to where we started giving again. We valued our energy a little more, just like we do when our financials. Whenever you get to where you don't have enough money, you value that dollar more than you do when you have abundance. And so whenever we give, sometimes we do. And once we get in that mindset, you're absolutely right. It's easy. You know, you start giving and you see God blessing and you see Him working, it's easy. But depending on our circumstances in life, it may come a time where we have to revisit that and not relearn it, so to speak, but be redirected back on the path that we were once on. Life's tough. It really is. And life throws you a bunch of curveballs. There's a bunch of unexpected turns along the way. And, you know, we hold on the best we can and we do the best we can. I'm just glad that God does not expect perfection. I'm glad that God is graceful. I'm glad that He does have that unspeakable gift that He gives to us over and over and over. And as long as we try to be more like Him each day, and that is giving, being willing to give the love, give your heart, give everything that you can when God asks you to do it. And as long as we give when God asks us to do it, we're going to be okay.
I agree with you. Once you get that mindset, it is easy to give. I think when it gets tough, when there's blessing, or it knows, or as quickly as you find. Because the attitude, like you said, it's nature to be greedy. So, yeah, you can open, you can give with an open heart, with an open mind, and just say, hey, be cheerful about it. But deep down, most people are still expecting a blessing of some sort, somewhere. Even if it is, you know, it may not be a money blessing, maybe it's, you know, somebody get healed from cancer or something like that. You know, it's not always, I'm not saying that if I give $10, I expect to get 20 back.
But you do expect God to keep His promise. When you give, you expect God to keep His promise and take care of you. And that's the expectation I believe that is fair. I truly feel that is completely fair, where we give to God, and as our Father, as God who says is being the God who says He is, that He's going to meet our every need. How that looks, we don't know. But I do think that deep down we do have that expectation from Him. Okay, I'm going to give, but I'm giving for you, for your glory, but I know in return that I'm going to be blessed. But it's not necessarily, I think where we get into the issue would be whenever we expect a blessing more than we want Him to get the glory. I think that's where we have crossed the line. Whenever we say, okay, I'm going to give because I'm going to be blessed, and He can do whatever. But if we give wanting God to receive the glory most of all, knowing that there's an expectation that He's going to take care of me and my family, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because that's just God being God. That's being who he said he will be to us. And, but I think you're absolutely right. And I think more often than not more often than not, I think more often than you think, that people do get that a little lopsided.
Well, I think, it's easy to pay 10%. 10% of your paycheck every time you get paid. It's easy to do that until, God bless and everything's going great. And all of a sudden, you get 10%, you realize, my life.
That's it.
Then that's when trial really is going.
Absolutely.
How much do you trust God to take care of that?
Absolutely.
Are you gonna give that money, or you gonna pay that life? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like you said, I think you gotta go with that knowing that God knows that. If God says, hey, pay that $10, pay it back, and I'll take care of the life. You gotta trust God.
That's right.
Yeah. God also might say, hey, I'll put that $10 in that place. This ain't right. Well, make sure you know what I mean? God will take care of the woman at home. It's just, it is easy, I'm not, some people are saying, it is easy once you get that money, but don't think it's never going to be difficult. Because it's going to be difficult at some point.
Well, to me, the thing that's difficult is helping someone. I'm one where I will help you as much as I possibly absolutely can if I know that you're in need. But if the person doesn't want to work, I'm not too generous. And
That's tough.
that's real tough.
That's
And
tough.
the same way there's a lot of people out there begging on the streets. There's a lot of honest people and there's a lot of scammers. And we live in a world now that people are probably scamming.
Absolutely.
Way too long.
Absolutely.
And that's where really I think where it is, give from your heart. And you really gotta figure, okay, is this legit or not? And a lot of times we're gonna be wrong. Well,
Yep.
we should be,
Yep.
But, it really is tough. So let's face it, if you had confidence all the time, you wouldn't mind paying our taxes all the time either.
Yes, ma'am.
Someone told me this one time, because I was like, how do you know so many people fake being homeless and make hundreds of dollars a day? I was like, how do you know when you're supposed to get, you pull up at a stoplight, you have 5 seconds to figure out what to do, and they're like at the window. And somebody told me that what you do, you have to answer for, but what they're doing, they have to answer for.
Correct.
So every time I get one,
Every time.
because that's on me. It's on them, they're on it.
And that's great. That's wonderful. I'll be honest with you, every time I don't give the money. I look and I make a judgment call, and this may sound bad, but if they just open a pack of Marlboros, most of the time I don't give. And the way I see it is, you could have bought you a cheeseburger with the money you spent on the Marlboros. And am I wrong for that? Like I said, I've got an answer for that. But there has been times to where I didn't want to give, that I had to.
I'll tell you what God will do.
That's right.
If I feel led to give, I will give.
That's right.
A lot of times, a split second decision.
And
I'll tell you something, this ain't bragging on myself, I think my wife and I got mad, and I kind of felt bad afterwards. So we were at Florence one day, I can't remember what stoplight exactly where we were at, well, it was like Church Street, I believe. There was a guy standing out there, and his sign didn't ask him or anything, he just asked, "Is something to eat?" Yeah. I think we had just left hot dog or something, and I had a bag of yogurt covered peanuts, raisins and salt. I mean, but I just opened that bag, and I used about 2 or 3 out, and I passed that sign and got to do something. I pulled up at the light was red, and I hit the window going down to sir, and I grabbed the bag, and stuck out the window, the light turned green, there was a pile of cars behind me. I said, drop it on the ground, so, wasn't trying to be mean. I was giving you something, but I'm real, I had road rage. So I know if I'd have been the 5th car back there and the guy was sitting with his hand or whatever, I'd have been real bad. So I was I know what, I'm still led, maybe I should have waited, but I still give him something to eat, you know what I mean? Like, I still did what I felt like was right. Maybe I should have taken off the stick with that, but, and I didn't talk, I got that night every day, I'm gonna stop and tell him what happened.
Yeah.
So let him know I wasn't mean like that. It wasn't like I was like, oh. But, I always just try to God.
And that's, and when you do, you have to have the mindset to where you have no expectation. I've done my part, and the rest is up to them, you know.
And
And
you have times where you should help somebody and the Holy Spirit's gonna bug you with that,
yeah, that's right, absolutely.
I've had instances where it's happened on both ways, where somebody, I know one night, somebody went to the store, and there was this lady there, and she was bad, and then she was dead. The very thing, she tore her hand, and she wanted money, wanted to leave. And I don't know why, I just said, I thought, something like that. And my buddy gave her some money. Well, one of the cashiers was sitting in the floor. Everybody had already got a check out, he took the broom, set it on the counter, and he walked off, and burned the bell, and he got, look here, she jumped. She ain't there. She showed her that broom.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what.
Yeah. And there's instances. Pierce got me one day. We were coming out of Dollar Tree, me and him, and the Dollar Tree in Florence, there's always people hanging out there in front of the store. And there were two guys, and the one guy come up and he was talking, and Pierce, you know, he sees through more Jesus eyes than we do sometimes. You know, kids, they see what they see. And then are we gonna help them? What can we do? So they asked for money to go buy charcoal where they can cook and this, that, and the other. I said, no, I'm not giving you any money. I said, but I'll go buy you a cheeseburger. And the guy looked at me and he said, I don't want a heart attack on a bun, but you can buy one for my brother. I said, okay. You know, number one, you ain't hungry. You know, because when I'm hungry, I'll eat anything. Even something I don't like, I'll eat, you know. So me and Pierce, we struck out and we went to Taco Bell and I bought a meal and I went by and I give it to his brother because he was nice and thankful. Man, I appreciate it. Thank you for everything you've done. The next day I went to Walmart at lunch and I got out the car and I seen a bicycle coming. And lo and behold, it was the same guy that didn't want a heart attack on a bun. The same guy. He said, hey man, I live back here and you know, so and man, I really need some help. I said, sir, I just helped you last night. I just tried to feed you last night. You know, I'm sorry. And he got mad. He took that bicycle and hit the front wheel on that. Why? I'm asking for something different this time. I got a different need today. I said, well, sir, I'm sorry. You know, I can't help you. You know, and it goes back to, I'm thankful that Pierce was with me for the experience. I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to give to an individual who may have truly needed it. You know, we don't know. But then at the same time, I seen it as a blessing from God. The fellow that didn't want a heart attack on the bun had to come to me again. You know, it sounds mean, but you know, I just tried to feed you. You know, it's time for you to put forth some effort here. You know, what we need more than just begging. Let's go to work. Let's do something. And I don't know a situation, but you know, it makes you think. I don't regret. I have no regrets about the situation, but there's been plenty of times where I have not given and I got beat up for it. And there's been times that I've given and man, you just feel better. You know, like all your chocolate covered raisins. Hey, that's probably $8 bag of thing, wasn't it? But man, people will know God in you through what you're willing to give. I honestly believe that. If we are willing to give as a church, people will see it. And they do all the time. How many times have you heard people coming to church and say, man, I feel at home, I see the love. I feel loved. I feel wanted. You know, all that is you giving in the name of Jesus. You're giving yourself. You're giving love. You're giving time. You're going out of your way to speak to these individuals. All that matters. Don't take it for granted. That's working for God. That's exactly what it's doing. And as long as we are giving in the name of God, people will truly see God in us.
That's the same thing as far as, I mean, us humans, we want to be accepted. And that's one thing that Christ did, he accepted everybody.
Everybody, yes.
So, I mean, that's the, and when people don't feel accepted, okay, they feel, you know, I'm outside of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else? Madeline? Good? Miss Susan? You're fine. Miss Susan's always fine, ain't she? She's always good. Okay.